So Module 57 is an overview of the four different types of market structure. So it's essentially an overview of the next month of class almost. These are the four types of market structures, right? A market is anywhere where there's a lot of buyers, where there's buyers and sellers, and these are the four types of classification. Some of them you've heard of, some of them you've maybe never heard of. So fast food market, car manufacturers, computer market, etc. All of these markets can be classified into one of these four. So you're going to learn graphs for most of them and the characteristics of each. So first, perfect competition. Perfect competition, these are some examples. Corn, strawberries, milk. They're all markets where there's many, many, many small firms, like thousands of firms competing for your business. They're all selling an identical product. Um, in reality, the product might be a tiny bit different, right? But for our purposes in economic theory, we're going to assume each corn seller is selling the exact same type of corn. The consumers can't differentiate it in any way. It's exactly the same. Perfect substitutes. There's low barriers to entry, so it's very easy for you to start a business in this market. In this industry or in this type of market, there's not like a lot of regulation. It's not super, super expensive. So the barriers to entry are low. Because the products are all identical, because it's all the same type of corn, the seller has no need to advertise, right? You don't see commercials for milk on TV. You see like General got milk commercials by the industry, but you don't see like, oh, buy ShopRite milk, right? Because it's basically identical to all other types of milk. And because they don't have any way to differentiate themselves, and because there's just so many competitors, firms are what's known as price takers. All that means is the market sets the price, and the firm has to sell their product at whatever price the market sets it at. Meaning, one individual firm doesn't have any power to influence the price of their product. Excuse me. So the far opposite of that is monopoly. So instead of having thousands of firms, a monopoly, there's just one firm. Monopolies are illegal, so you can't really find too many true perfect monopoly examples anywhere at all. But we can find monopolies in certain areas, like De Beers Mining Company. We have some electric companies, for example, in some areas are monopolies, like in the country of New Zealand, has one electric company for the whole entire area. Here in New Jersey, all of you most likely have PSE&G as your electric company. There's no one else supplying it. Sometimes where I live, I can only get Verizon Internet. Verizon isn't a monopoly, but in my town, it is a monopoly, and it's my only option. So they're selling a unique product, unique because it's literally only one, right? If they're the only one in town, then by definition, they're selling something that's unique. There's super high barriers to entry. Firms can't easily enter this industry, which makes sense as to why there's only one in there in the first place. They're price makers, so since they're the only ones in town, they have total control over their price. Total control. Um, some of these barriers to entry that we're talking about, some have economies of scale, meaning you're not going to get really low cost until you start to produce a lot. Like an electric company, for example, it's so expensive to power a town or power a country full of electricity, right? You can see what happened in Puerto Rico after the hurricanes. So it kind of makes sense to only have one person who's going to pay all that upfront costs and then be rewarded with the economies of scale as they surface a large population. There might be superior technology, so one company might just have such better technology than others that they end up creating a monopoly because they have patents on that technology. In terms of the jewelry companies or the diamond companies, if they own the mines in Africa, they own the right to mine in those mines, and you just can't walk on in there and start mining their diamonds. No, they own those mines, so they own the raw materials, and you can't get it. Government created barriers. These are like patents, right? If I make a drug that cures all cancer, the government will reward me with a patent that lasts a certain number of years, which will create a monopoly on my drug. Oligopoly. These are a few competitors, so gasoline companies, internet service providers, car manufacturers. There's a few large producers. We'll say, less than 10. They could either have identical products or the products could be differentiated. It doesn't matter. It just depends on the industry. It's some distinguishing factor. There's still very high barriers to entry. That's why there's only a few of them in the first place. And they have a large control over price. Not total control like in Monopoly, but they still have large control. And they have this thing called mutual interdependence. So they have to worry about what the other guy does. Like a gasoline company that's on the corner of an intersection, they have to worry about what the other gasoline companies are charging for a gallon of regular gas that day. And then finally, monocomp. By the way, we're going to have tests on each of these, so we'll go into a lot more detail on all four of these. Monocomp, monopolistic competition. There's a large number of sellers, less than perfect competition. Fast food stores, anything in the mall, almost everything in the mall is monocomp because the products are differentiated. So like Applebee's, TGI Fridays, Chili's, they all sell food, but they've differentiated the type of food. They've like Applebee's tries to differentiate themselves by being your neighborhood bar and grill, like it's a friendly place, right? So they have some control over price. Specifically, make sure you know it's because of the differentiation. They're able to say, "Hey, we're different." They advertise that they're different, and then they are able to raise their prices a bit more, right? Like Apple has computers. They have PCs as a competitor, but they're able to say, hey, we're faster, better, fancier, more higher status symbol, so we're going to be able to charge more. So they're advertising and competing on things other than price, right? Apple is saying their price is worth it, and they're going to compete based off of quality or battery life, not necessarily concerned as much with price. They're able to control their price by saying they have a higher quality in their advertising and relatively low barriers to entry, right? It's probably easier to start your own clothing company than it is to start your own gas company, right? So we'll do more specifically perfect competition next time. This ends up being a hard test here, so make sure you stick with us.